I want to talk about what happened at my city council's listening session that I just got home from. So this video in some ways is for Portlanders, but really it's reflective of what is happening in communities all over the country and on a national scale as well. So it is 8:54 p.m. Pacific time on March 20th, and I went to our City Council's District 1 listening session at Parkrose High School at the end of my street, because Portland City Council has like a $90 million budget shortfall. And so this was like a budget listening session where people could come and speak to our city councilors and to the mayor about the proposed cuts to the budget. The things that City Council has said, these are kind of on the chopping block, and we want you to tell us what programs to cut. And before I get into what we talked about there, it is so important that we stay plugged into local politics. What is happening in our communities, right where we live, being hyper local, being invested in what is happening in our neighborhoods is just as important as keeping tabs on and being involved in and working toward protecting our democracy on a national scale, right? We need to be involved at every level. And I'm sorry, I know that's a lot of work. I know it is a big ask of us to be informed and be interacting and have our voices lent to the conversation on all those levels, local, county, state, and federal, but it is so important right now. So this was like a 2-hour listening session where folks got to give their opinions, and the folks on City Council didn't have answers. Their job was just to listen, right? And so the proposed cuts to the budget include things that are going to profoundly impact my part of Portland. So for those of you that aren't from Portland, our city council has been notoriously inept and I would argue corrupt for a long time. We had a mayor for multiple terms who was originally a Republican and changed his party affiliation only because he knew he couldn't get elected here as a Republican, who is from a lumber baron family. He's extremely wealthy. And we had this small city council that really served the needs of the wealthiest parts of Portland, the Portland Business Alliance, and extremely wealthy neighborhoods. And so where the majority of Portland lives was being neglected, and especially where the majority of non-white Portland lives, my part of town, the majority of where the children of Portland live, 40% of Portland's children live in my district. We were not being represented on city council. So we had this sweeping initiative that the people of Portland overwhelmingly voted for to restructure city government. And this is why I still very much believe in democracy, because the people saw that the structure of our city government was not serving the people. It was serving big business. It was not serving the citizens of Portland, Oregon. And so we voted to radically change the way city council works. Expand, our councilors create these districts. Instead of having, just a few folks on city council who are supposed to speak for all of the city, we now have councilors who are representing our corner of Portland, right? District 1, East Portland. Their job is to advocate for our needs. And because we were not the part of Portland where all the money is, where all the special interest is, where all the corporate wealth is, we were getting left in the dust over and over. We are the part of Portland where most of the immigrants live. We are the part of Portland that is most diverse. We are the part of Portland that has an average income, $20,000 to $40,000 less than other neighborhoods in Portland. And we were getting the shaft for years and years and years. And so we, the people, voted to restructure city council so that we have a voice. We have 3 voices on city council. So we have all of these new councilors who were immediately given this massive budget shortfall, and Portland is a city with a lot of problems. And I know folks on the right, the Fox News enthusiasts, like to say, Portland is a shit show because it's a pinko city and it's full of Democrats and like socialists. But actually our city council, run by a lumber baron mayor, was very much motivated by corporate interest and supporting businesses, especially like out-of-state developers, right? It was very much catering to business interest versus citizen interest. And so we saw all kinds of tax cuts and incentives and corporations and the wealthiest Portlanders not paying their fair share. Does this sound a little bit like what's happening on a national level? So we, the people of Portland, have been presented with this, we have this huge budget shortfall. What should we cut? The listening session is asking Portlanders, what programs should we cut? So my eldest and I went tonight and they handed out a survey that was like, here's the possible programs to be cut. Is this a yes or a no? Would you be okay with us cutting this program? Yes or no? And the things on the chopping block are like after school programs for elementary and middle schoolers, club sports programs, our parks, like maintenance for our parks, closing community centers. Also things like the Portland Street Response, which is a non-police program to help with intervention for folks in crisis. Portland Street Response is just such an important program. The people overwhelmingly support it, and the city is constantly trying to cut it, and I don't understand why. So it felt to me when I was originally looking ahead of the meeting about what the proposed cuts were, it was like, do we cut park maintenance, right? The folks who clean up the parks before the park opens in the morning, folks who clean the bathrooms, maintain the park grounds, do repairs at the parks. So do we cut from our parks, or do we cut from our like sports and after school programs for kids? And I was reading this ahead of time and I was like, why are these the things on the chopping block at all? And I was so pleasantly surprised to see this huge turnout and all of these folks getting up to speak about like, we cannot cut these programs for kids. These youth basketball programs, these keep kids off the streets that are often not safe. They make sure our children are doing things other than being involved in gang activity. They're making sure our kids have mentorship, friendships. They're making sure our kids are kept safe after school hours. The union was there representing the like 270 Portland employees that are potentially going to lose their jobs that do things like maintain our parks, right? So, we had park employees there saying our parks are so important to our children, to our youth of all ages. And not only that, but like to everybody in Portland. I have spoken at length about how Lewitt View Park, which is one neighborhood over from mine, I walk there every single day. It is a community hub. It is full of people. It is the most diverse place in Portland, Lewitt View Park. It is beautiful. It is just such an important place in the city for so many people. And to say we're going to cut maintenance of the park, we're going to make sure that the park is less functional, less safe, less well-maintained, makes no sense. And add to that, talk of cutting community centers. Right, like why are the things on the chopping block community centers and sports programs for kids? And why is it that the programs that are being put up as ones that we've got to cut are ones that are going to disproportionately impact East Portland, the most diverse, the most economically suppressed part of the city? One of my neighbors, my friend, stood up and said, there should be no cuts for East Portland until there's equity here, right? As long as we are socioeconomically suppressed, as long as our median income is tens of thousands of dollars behind the rest of the city, no services should be cut out here. Make the cuts to the wealthy parts of the city first. Until there is equity for East Portland, don't touch a goddamn thing out here. I mean, she said it much more civilly than I would, which is why I did not get up and speak. One of the union workers stood up and said, why is it that the wealthier admin are not at risk of losing their jobs? It is the boots on the ground, the people who are out there maintaining our parks and who are, refereeing youth basketball and are providing these after school programs for kids. These are the folks who are going to lose their jobs, but the admin who are making mad money, they are not at risk of losing their jobs. Why is that? I really, really appreciated the person who stood up and said, we can have nice things here in Portland. Everybody can be housed. Everybody can be fed. We can have beautiful parks. We can make sure our kids have activities to get plugged into. Our streets can be maintained. We can have 911 services and fire services because those things are also on the chopping block. We can do all of these things if we tax the rich. The only reason we do not have those things in Portland, Oregon, is because we do not tax the rich. We give them tax cuts and incentives. See what I'm saying? This is an echo of what is happening on a national scale. Everything we are losing right now on a national scale, everything that Elon Musk is cutting from the federal government is because they are wanting to provide benefits, handouts for the wealthiest amongst us and for corporations. What is happening here is happening here. We do not have to live this way, y'all. The services that are meant to benefit us, the people, the most vulnerable members of our community, but also all of us, enrich all of our quality of life, help us access the things that we need. Those things should not be on the chopping block. Those should be non-negotiables. That is what our tax money is meant to fund. Not incentives for corporations and developers, not tax cuts for billionaires. What is happening in Portland, Oregon is happening on a national scale. It is happening all over America. And when are we going to say enough is enough?